right in front of us. I don't know about y'all, but I'm glad to be here today. Well, if I can clarify that a little bit, the reason we're here is because too many of us are too familiar with this uniquely American problem called gun violence.
Yes.
But the other reason we're here is because of the movement, of the commitment, of the steadfastness that so many individuals have shown to say that while we have a uniquely American problem, we also have a uniquely American solution that we can put forward to end the scourge of gun violence in all of our communities that has impacted all of our families. And so I'm proud to stand tall alongside all of you as we take one more step forward to end the senseless opportunities for people to take other people's lives. Today's legislation that we're signing represents a chance for us to really be there to help people who need help. For us to be able to say that if you're a danger to yourself or others, that we can help and remove a risk from you. And that risk being having a firearm. Governor Gretchen Whitmer and I are very, very proud of the movement that got us to this moment. We recognize that none of us got here alone. We've heard from families all across Michigan who have been impacted by gun violence. Teachers, parents, neighbors, friends, cousins, children. We all have a story, but we get to write a new page in that story today.
Yes.
Thank you all for the work that you do, for the commitment you've shown, and for the courage to say that there is nothing we cannot accomplish with a movement that's strong enough.
That's right.
There is nothing that we can't get past if we push together. There is no single gun death that is not preventable. And we are taking a step to prevent them today. I said that everyone has a role to play in this movement. And I can think of no better partner in public service that has helped all of us in Michigan be safer and stronger than my partner, the Attorney General of the great state of Michigan, Dana Nessel.
Can I even use this? Is this working? Okay. All right, got it. Is there? No, I don't think. Where? I think this is for one of the news outlets, probably. Yeah. All right. I'm not. My voice is not amplified the way that the LG's is, so hopefully this will work. First of all, before I get started here, and I don't want not just to acknowledge all the amazing advocates who are here today that work so hard to make sure that this happened. Many of you, you have seen too much. You have experienced too much. You are, I guess we'll call it, accidental advocates, many of you, because of the way that your lives were affected by senseless gun violence. And you shouldn't have had to go through all this, and you shouldn't have to be here, but you fought so hard for so long, and I want to say thanks, a debt of gratitude that we all owe all of you who are standing here today or who are in the audience for all your hard work on this. I'd also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the role that was played by our wishful thinking, our past and our present state legislators who worked so hard on this. If all of you would stand up, if you are a current member of the legislature and you supported this, if you are a previous member, Robert, stand up. If you are a previous member of the legislature and you helped to make this day happen because of your hard work, we owe each and every one of you a debt of gratitude. This could not have happened without all of your hard work. Thank you to all of you who are standing right there today. And I actually found a picture of myself and the governor speaking on a very cold day in 2018 after one of the terrible shootings that happened that year when we were both campaigning and we were both standing in front of the state capitol, both of us committing to do what is being done here today. And I'm just so proud to be part of a process to bring a little bit of relief to people in a state that have just suffered far too long. I do want to say in my nearly 30 years of practicing law, thank you. Is that a new one?
Yes.
Okay. Right, better. Okay. I don't know what it is. Could be anything. All right. As an assistant prosecutor in Wayne County, as a defense attorney, as somebody who handled a lot of PPO cases for domestic violence survivors, I feel like it's just too many acts of gun violence for one person to have seen in a lifetime, and that is so many of us in this state. And so much of it so unnecessarily. Such a substantial number of people who were experiencing mental health breakdowns in which no logical person would think that an individual in that mindset should have access to deadly firearms. And many people who knew of that individual's mental health issues, knew they had firearms, contacted law enforcement, and law enforcement was simply powerless to do anything about it to prevent what became a completely foreseeable tragedy. But not any longer.
No.
So, these extreme risk protection orders will at long last allow law enforcement to have the tools that we need to do our jobs to prevent these senseless tragedies. And I will say this, I've said it before, I'll say it again. In my capacity as Attorney General of this great state, I plan to travel to as many areas in the state as possible to educate the public, to educate members of law enforcement, to talk to domestic violence and sexual assault victims advocates, to judges, to other stakeholders, and to tell them about the importance of these laws and how they can best be utilized. And for those who are in law enforcement who refuse to enforce these important orders, let me say this loudly and clearly. I will make certain that I find someone with jurisdiction who will enforce these orders. I just want to end with this. Shortly after her murder at Michigan State University, I met with Dawana Davis, Ariel Anderson's mother. And I promised her at that time I would do everything in my power to ensure that these laws were properly drafted and passed into law. And when I spoke to her this morning, this is what she said. She said, "Please tell everyone, my daughter didn't deserve this. Ariel had such a bright and promising future ahead of her in life. She had dreams of becoming a surgeon and exploring the world, all of which she was robbed of by a man experiencing mental illness who never should have had guns at the time that he killed Ariel. I hope this law means my daughter did not die in vain, and that her death allows another woman's daughter to live. So, Ms. Davis, this is for you and Ariel and all of the other victims and survivors of senseless gun violence. This is us fulfilling our commitment to actually do something. And so thanks to everybody who had a part in this, and thanks to our Governor, Gretchen Whitmer, for signing these bills. And with that, Mary Miller.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Miller. I live in Berkeley, and I am the proud mom of Ben and Helen. I work as a clinical social worker for a community mental health agency in Wayne County. But today, I want to tell a story and thank the number of advocates, legislators, Governor Whitmer, for making extreme risk protection orders a reality. I grew up in a small town with a close-knit family where church was a big part of our everyday lives. My small town is just 100 miles from here in Michigan. My older brother was my role model for everything I loved, and when we were in high school, we had the opportunity to do a youth group mission trip to New Orleans. This was a life-changing experience for both of us. My brother Ben was at the epicenter of that event. His charisma and hope was infectious. It did not matter if we were in the airport, in a waiting line, or on the street of New Orleans meeting strangers. He extended peace and grace to everyone he encountered. Ben made everyone feel like they mattered. He committed himself to building up individuals everywhere he went in life. My brother inspired others, and he made them see something they had never seen in themselves before. Ben brought his genuine dedication to humanity to the Air Force. There, he gathered a strong group of friends, and they would talk about everything, from the best late-night television to genuine fear about being deployed in the Middle East one more time. After his enlistment, my brother was honorably discharged from the Air Force, and he started attending college. Once again, my brother gathered a group of friends, and he created a group at his college dedicated to positive social change. Ben was relentless in encouraging others to chase their dreams and work towards justice and peace. He was always in my corner, and he pushed me to do what I was passionate about and begged me not to take a predictable path. Ben could not see how he inspired greatness in others. He did not see how he changed people for the better. On a Friday afternoon, my brother called my mom because he was in crisis. He told her he was going to purchase a gun and end his life. My dad and I went to every gun store in our small town, and we showed a picture of my brother, begged them, please do not sell him a gun. We gave our phone numbers and said, just call us, we'll come. We'll come and get him. You don't have to do anything. We were unsuccessful that day. My brother was able to purchase a gun. My brother had everything he needed. He had a supportive family. He had countless friends who loved him. He had mental health services from the VA. But in a moment of crisis, my brother had access to a firearm. He used that firearm to end his life. On the day that I was meant to start graduate school, I was giving the eulogy at my brother's funeral at the church we grew up in. The Extreme Risk Protection Order law will do so much to save many Michigan families from the tragedy my family has endured. It will give families more time to intervene and help their loved ones in a time of crisis. I am eternally grateful to Robert Wittenberg, who was a champion of this cause, and Moms Demand Action, because you gave my grief a place to turn into action. I'm additionally grateful to Senator McMorrow, Representative Breen and the House, the Attorney General and the Governor, who are going to save countless lives by enacting this piece of common sense gun legislation. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Thank you so much.
The rest of our program will continue in just a moment as they come outside. Everybody stay where you are. In the meantime, say thank you to the person next to you, because we wouldn't have this day without every single one of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Carter alone in your house is a bad idea.
I'm glad they positioned us. I said, it's fine. Because like I said, I don't want to trip.
I will if you.
You first.
Zoe.
Let's try something new.
over and over again.
Exactly. That's good.
Maybe we could go get run spits.
That would be.
I owe him a little, don't I?
Stopping gun violence take courage. The courage to do what's right. The courage to do ideas. I've seen great courage when my life is on the line. Now is the time to come together. Be responsible. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We must never stop fighting. Fight, fight, fight. Be bold. Be courageous. The nation counting on you. Thank you very much.
All right.
And now we'll be joined by Pastor Hawkins. Give it up one more time for Gabby Gifford.
To Governor Whitmer, elected officials, to the press, and all others that are present. I am honored to witness a historic bill signing that will serve its intended purpose of saving lives. This bill is what I consider a lifeline to many Black and brown as well as poverty-stricken communities that have been bleeding heavily for some time. This bill will remove the Band-Aid to stitch the wounds that have left so many families distraught and torn, with the hopes of seeing fewer families having to deal with these tragedies. As a person who has experienced this trauma firsthand, though it won't bring my sons back, it brings me joy knowing that there are more safeguards in place that will protect communities across this state and assure that those who have died from senseless gun violence have not died in vain.
All right.
I recall being in the courtroom and standing shoulder to shoulder to the young man, 21 years old at the time, who murdered my second son. I wondered, what if someone could have intervened before he pulled the trigger?
Yeah.
What if he did not have such easy access to a gun?
Yes.
Perhaps he would have gotten the proper help he needed, and more importantly, perhaps my son would still be here. For me, this bill serves as a community accountability to help save lives of potential victims and to get a potential perpetrator the proper help they need before they destroy their own lives or the lives of others.
That's right.
So again, thank you, Governor Whitmer, and all the lawmakers for this bill and for taking the Band-Aid off a wound that far too long needed stitches. Thank you.
I didn't know I was going to be the MC, but please join me in welcoming Prosecutor Kim Worthy.
You do it well, along with everything else you do well. You know, I have been perplexed about this issue as a prosecutor for the largest county, as the prosecutor for the largest county in Michigan. We see the ravages of gun violence every single day and sometimes multiple times a day. And I just don't understand, and for the life of me, I don't get it, why anyone would oppose these bills when it helps reduce suicide and has the opportunity to prevent and reduce suicide, de-escalate emergency situations, reduce mass shootings and any shootings of any kind, and removes guns from people who are mentally ill or having mental issues. I don't understand. How can anybody be against something like this? This law, and I've got to write it down, so I want to get it right. This law simply sets out a process to prevent these things, and who wants the continued proliferation of suicides and mass shootings? No one. We should do everything, everywhere, all at once to have a shot at preventing them. This is simply another tool in our toolbox, and a tool that's sadly needed and much, much had. These laws lay out a process designed to be responsive to support these goals, and includes a requirement to turn around a request in the court in 24 hours. I'm not going to cite any statistics for you. I just don't understand how anybody that walks this planet can be against a bill that saves lives, prevents people from committing suicide, and prevents mass shootings. It's unfathomable that everyone in the nation is not for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. Next up is Representative Kelly Bree.
Thank you, Governor. Do you DJ as well? I never understood the phrase blood, sweat, and tears until I joined with others here on the stage and elsewhere in the state and country to reduce gun violence. There have been a lot of tears. Tears of my own when I feared we would not be able to pass the bills, which we did. When we feared we could not get the support of law enforcement, which we did. Tears from gun violence survivors and families of victims who could not outrun the bullets or stop a loved one from pulling the trigger in their darkest time. Sweat from the children and educators hiding in classroom corners, from the officers searching for a gunman, or from the EMT or physician trying to save a life. And the blood. From the blood spilled in the elementary school coat closet, a high school library or hallway, a grocery store, a synagogue, a church, a mall, and every day, hundreds of times, blood spilled in American homes due to domestic violence and mental illness. Blood, sweat, and tears. But there has been faith. Faith because we all know that nobody, not a single person here, wants to lose somebody to gun violence. Faith because parents who have lost their children have still gotten out of bed every single day. Wow. People like Nicole Hockley, who lost her little butterfly Dylan at Sandy Hook, or Max Schachter, who lost Alex at Parkland. Every day they get out of bed to try to reduce gun violence, to make sure that no other parent experiences that horror. Faith because Gabby Giffords literally took a bullet to the head, has learned to walk and talk again, and is here with us today. Amen. Faith because we all know all we want is for our kids and our loved ones to come home at the end of the day. And as good as it feels to see Governor Whitmer put pen to paper today and sign these bills, it doesn't compare to the joy I feel when my son and daughter jump off the school bus and into my arms. It's because of these bills and the other common sense gun regulations that we have passed that my kids and yours and our loved ones have a better chance of coming home at the end of the day. Many people talk about their God-given right to bear arms. And it's worth repeating that while most of us do believe in a higher power, I'm absolutely certain that God did not write the Second Amendment.
Yes!
Man wrote that. And we should remember this, that we are all human, we are not infallible, and we are divided, but is with this one human goal, our sincere desire to make sure that our loved ones come home at the end of the day. That I am committed along with everyone here to help enact these change. And these bills will not be effective until next year, but I will do all that I can to make sure people know about these bills and the hope that they bring. And that includes law enforcement that may doubt the validity of these laws. I am certain they do not want a devastating loss on their conscience, knowing it might have been prevented.
Thank you to everybody who helped enact this change, from the victims and survivors who testified, from Treasurer Whittenberg, who's been banging this drum as long as I have. To my colleagues, the governor, my staff who frequently supply the tissues for my tears, the sheriffs, the prosecutors, Attorney General Nessel, and my family, my husband and 2 kids that throughout all the blood, sweat, and tears gave me the faith and hope to know that we would get this done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next to speak is Senator Mallory McMorrow.
Thank you all for joining us here today, here in Royal Oak. Welcome to my hometown. I'm State Senator Mallory McMorrow, and I'm so pleased to be with all of you today on a day that has been years in the making. A day that just a few short months ago didn't even feel possible. But thanks to the tireless efforts and persistence of so many of you today, including those who bravely shared their own stories of losing loved ones to gun violence, Moms Demand Action volunteers who have relentlessly made gun violence a primary issue for voters.
Yes.
Countless stakeholders, as Rec Marine said, including law enforcement, mental health professionals, university researchers, and organizations like Giffords, helping us to learn best practices from all around the country in states who have enacted these laws. And so many of my colleagues, some of whom who are here today, and including Treasurer Robert Whittenberg, who introduced the first bill in 2015, nearly 10 years ago. Like I said, it's a day truly years in the making. Our country, our state, and our communities are being devastated by the epidemic of gun violence. And while school shootings, mass shootings, and hate-filled targeted attacks capture most of the headlines, the true depth of this crisis rarely makes it into the news. But for those families, those who aren't in the headlines, the pain is no less, even if you may never see it. 6 out of every 10 gun deaths in the United States are suicides. And of those who attempt suicide by firearm, 90% are successful, a percentage significantly higher than via any other method. In fact, a majority of those who survive a suicide attempt do not go on to die by suicide, meaning that the result of that first attempt, that moment, is critical in determining the ultimate outcome for an individual in crisis. Across the country, 19 states, well now 20, I see you, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Washington, D.C. have enacted red flag laws, including Florida, Indiana, Virginia, Connecticut, and others. Today, Michigan becomes the 21st. These red flag laws create a preventative tool, a stopgap for loved ones, judges, and law enforcement. And while it is difficult to measure events that did not happen, evidence shows that these extreme risk protection orders can and do save lives. Connecticut saw a 14% reduction in suicide following the implementation of red flag laws. And Indiana, our neighbors just to the south, similarly saw a 7.5% reduction. Here in Michigan, approximately half of all suicides are by firearm. And in 2019, there were 742 suicides by firearm, including 31 children. Based on what we've learned from states like Indiana and Connecticut, implementation of similar laws in Michigan could have resulted in dozens of those victims still being alive today. These laws, more than anything else, will buy time. Time to prevent the worst case scenario. Time to save lives. We still have so much work to do, so much. But as we stand here today, 10 years later, almost 10 years later, let's take a moment to celebrate and be thankful for the progress that has been made, a result of years of tireless work by so many people, including all of you who are here. Thank you. While today's action won't bring back those we've lost, it is a tremendous step forward to saving lives in Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen McDonald, and I'm the Oakland County Prosecutor. I'm not a legislator, but I want to say thank you to all of the lawmakers that we have currently and the ones in the past that have devoted their time and energy to this. I also want to recognize that we have victims of the Oxford shooting, and specifically Jill Suave, who lost her son that day, and we have the Watsons, and if I missed anybody, I'm sorry, but it's those people I think of every single day. And we can never stop looking them in the eyes because they're going to hold us accountable. This law is common sense. As a former circuit court judge, I had parents of adult children come to my courtroom and plead for some sort of help, and they wanted help taking a weapon away from their adult child who was in crisis, and they were feared would hurt himself or someone else. And my answer to them was, there's nothing I can do. And there's nothing the police can do. And now, there is something we can do, and there's something the police can do. And I want to say, these are desperate people. They have somebody they love that is in crisis, and they are very concerned they might hurt somebody, and they didn't care what letter you had after your name, or political affiliation, or any really thing about gun control. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to save their child's life. They wanted to save their husband's life, and they would do anything to do it. So what we're talking about is really just taking a deadly weapon out of the hands of someone who is in extreme crisis, and that is not controversial. It's just common sense, and it's the right thing to do. Lastly, I just want to say I applaud all of your efforts, but we are not in a position to take a victory lap. This is one small piece of a public health crisis, and it will not be solved by prosecutions alone or even legislation alone. We need a public health solution to the leading cause of children in this country, which is gun violence. So I urge you to keep going. And now I'm going to also get the honor of introducing our MC for this afternoon, but what I like to call is one of the most inspirational leaders of our time, Governor Whitmer.
Well, thank you, everybody. I want to start by thanking all of the people that played a direct role in this. We've got a lot of legislators, current and former here, prosecutors, police officers, first responders, people that show up in the worst moments. Thank you. Pastor Hawkins, thank you for putting your personal story out there, and Representative Wittenberg, or former Rep. Wittenberg, clerk now, thank you for leading the way. Did I get that right? Treasurer. Thank you all. And Gabby Giffords, Congresswoman, thank you for dedicating your life to keeping others safer. There's nothing more incredible and inspirational than seeing a person who's had gun violence touch their lives, turn it into a cause to make other people safe. And I mean that especially for the parents and loved ones of those we've lost over the last couple of years, over the last decade, no matter how long. It never goes away, and I thank you for raising your voices and being here to make the world a safer place for other people's families. Today we're going to take an additional step in action to reduce gun violence and save lives. Soon I'll be signing legislation that establishes an extreme risk protection order here in Michigan. It's a proactive way to prevent mass shootings, suicides, and other forms of gun violence. I want to thank my partners in the legislature for sending these bills to my desk, and so many organizations that were critical in getting us to this moment. The Sheriff's Association, the Michigan Academy of Family Physicians, all for supporting these bills and helping work to get them over the finish line. Extreme risk protection orders, also known as red flag laws, allow police officers, mental health professionals, family members concerned about someone who may harm themselves or others, give them the ability to seek a court order to temporarily confiscate firearms. We have heard too many times from those who knew a mass shooter who had expressed concern in advance about that mass shooter's intentions. We've seen situations where local police flagged someone or even spoke to them about their violent statements, but weren't able to take any further course of action. With extreme risk protection orders, we have a mechanism to step in and save lives. Extreme risk protection orders also will reduce suicides. People often see warning signs of suicidal ideation in those that they are close to, and now they can take action to keep them safe. We will become the 21st state to enact extreme risk protection orders. We've seen these other states across this nation take this action, states that are surprising to some, like Indiana and Florida. They're reducing firearm suicide rate by 7.5% in Indiana alone, as one example, saving hundreds of lives. So we must act, because week after week in America, we see grim, familiar headlines. Every place you can think of, every situation you can imagine has been shattered by gun violence. And so many of the perpetrators showed warning signs beforehand. Last month, 6 people were killed at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky. The shooter expressed violent and suicidal ideation beforehand to a friend. 2 weeks ago, at a mall in Texas, where families were enjoying a quiet Saturday afternoon, became a war zone where 9 people were shot and killed. The shooter had been discharged from the military because of mental health flags. Mass shooters from the elementary school in Uvalde, high school in Parkland, Walmart in El Paso, grocery store in Buffalo, all expressed warning signs, either online posts or comments to loved ones or interactions with authorities. And we here in Michigan know that pain too. The shooters from Oxford and MSU both showed concerning behavior beforehand. Now we have a way to confiscate weapons from people who pose a danger to themselves or others. Extreme risk protection orders will also help reduce suicides. In 2021, the most recent year for which we have data, over 26,000 Americans took their own lives with a firearm. Easy access to firearms combined with rising rates of depression and loneliness rates have led to an increase in death by suicide. I want to commend Michiganders who are sharing their own stories about how extreme risk protection orders could have saved lives of people that they know. Karen from Pontiac has become an outspoken advocate for extreme risk protection orders because of her family's story. Her daughter killed her brother and boyfriend before taking her own life last May. Karen had called the police repeatedly after her daughter turned 21, pleading with them to take away her firearms because she was a threat to herself and others. They didn't have any ability to take action at the time. Since then, Karen, who is a responsible gun owner, has been sharing her story and speaking out in favor of extreme risk protection orders. So I want to thank Karen and all the brave people who have come forward and shared the most painful story of your life to try to help improve the world for others. To keep our kids and communities safe, we need to take these common sense actions to reduce gun violence. Earlier this year, I was very proud to sign universal background checks and safe storage requirements into law. Universal background checks are roundly supported by Michiganders and gun owners alike, which help keep guns out of the hands of violent criminals, domestic abusers, people on terrorism watch lists and no-fly lists. They also help our police officers stay safe on the job and solve crimes. Safe storage helps ensure that children do not accidentally get their hands on firearms or ammunition in the home so that they can be free from harm or not be harmful to others. Today, signing extreme risk protection orders is the next step. All of these laws are supported by a majority of Michiganders. I think that's important to say over and over again.
Yes.
They're also supported by a majority of gun owners.
Yes.
Right.
In this country and only in the United States of America, guns are the #1 killer of our kids. We must take action, and today I'm proud to say here in Michigan, we are. And so with that, I'm ready to sign the bill.
All right, next up, Senator McMorrow, if you could just squeeze here, and then Representative Green to the left. Just one with you again. Mr. Whitmer, please step up and photo.
See if I can get it.
Oh.